Hello and welcome everyone to the second episode of Four Tires and Fuel. I'm your co-host Stephen Cherrick. He's John McGee, and we are the Tire Changers. And I am, yeah. So we're excited to have this podcast rolling. We just got back from Darlington, and it was pretty eventful for us at least. And I think it was pretty eventful for you as well, John.
That's right. Yeah. We got our first ever win. Well, at least my first ever win on Friday night in the truck race. I was the front tire changer for the number 45 Nice Motorsports truck driven by Ross Chastain. And yeah, it was an awesome night. We knew we had a good chance going in, obviously with Ross and the truck, but just the equipment and the quality of trucks that Nice brings to the track each week. You know, Phil Gould is an incredible crew chief, and all the guys behind the wall, behind the scenes, setting it up are awesome. So we knew we had a great chance coming in. We qualified sixth, and yeah, just kept getting better and better as the race went on. It was a little bit hard for everybody to kind of figure out how the track would be because after practice and qualifying, we got a huge rain, like a big downpour of rain. And originally the race was kind of started to be kind of like sunset time. So it would still be a little warm on the track, like you'd be getting sun on the asphalt, and it would warm the temperature up on the track a little bit. But all that kind of changed when the race got delayed because of rain to like 10. A lot of the rubber that had been on the track washed off, and yeah, the temperatures just changed. So we came down our first stop, and yeah, Ross was just complaining that he was really, really tight. Like he was describing the truck throughout, the run. He was like, it's like a 2 out of 5 tight. And then eventually, like by the end of the first stage, he was like, I've ran out of numbers. It's like more than 5 out of 5 tight. He was like really, really tight. So we made some adjustments on the truck, on the track bar to free it up. And yeah, and we kind of just kept chipping away. So, but long story short, we got my first ever win, and it was really, really awesome. Darlington's one of those tracks, like as a tire changer, I would say that or Martinsville are probably the two most challenging for me, at least, in my opinion. And to win at Darlington for my first race was, for my first win was, yeah, it was really, really awesome. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Huge congratulations. I mean, I know how hard you've worked and how much you wanted to get that win. I know you really wanted to get it last year when we were pitting for Raja, and I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy that you finally broke through and got the victory lane.
yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's kind of like you see everybody else win, and you're like, man, I, I don't know if I'll ever get it. Like, and then when you get your first run, you're like, oh yeah. I was like, let's go win next week. You know, we have Ross in the track in North Wilkesboro. Like, it kind of like changed my whole mindset and the way I view things. Like at first, it was like, oh, I don't know if I ever good enough to win, and and then you do, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is nothing. Like we can do
Hey, I'll
this.
tell you, at least you didn't have to wait 5 years for yours. I
True.
had to wait 5 for mine. So
Yeah. No, true. I mean, we definitely did get close several times last year on Raj's truck, and then I know you got several wins last year on as a part of Grant Enfinger on the 23 truck last year for GMS. So that was awesome for you to watch, as a teammate, and just seeing you finally get that first win, and then another right after.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, man. But yeah, so since it's still fresh in your mind, kind of walk us through like what it was like, pitting for Ross Chastain, how he is and like, what it was like, what the stops were like and like the emotion of getting the first win and everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I mean, you kind of ideally you have the same mindset and the same you know, pit stop speed for whoever the driver is, and whether you're running in first or like 5 laps down, right? Like ideally, you're going out, jumping over the wall the exact same way, every time. But definitely, not gonna lie, there is nervousness when you're pitting for a driver like Ross, and especially knowing that you have a really good chance to win for a team that hasn't won yet this year. Ross was in the truck for us earlier this year at Coda, and I felt like we did really good pit stops and put him in a position to win. We had a few mishaps, like we got spun out on track. Had a speeding penalty on pit road that pushed us back, but we still finished top 5. So, knowing all that happened at Coda, like I knew we still had a really, really good chance to win at Darlington. So yeah, like I said, the first stop, we had an adjustment. So we did 2 rounds out of the track bar to free him up, and did some air pressure adjustments as well. And and then the second stop, we had to do a little bit more adjusting. And to just get him, Ross was on the radio saying, that first round of adjustments was great, but it didn't quite get me to where I need to be. So we did one more round of adjustments on the second stop, and then Darlington, like we talked about last time, is one of those tracks. Like if you on a long run, there can be like 2-3 seconds worth of lap time difference on tires. It just chews through them. So I think there was only like 3 or 4 laps left, and a late race caution came, and we came down P2. And our crew chief and Ross were discussing whether to take 2 tires or take 4 tires. And we ultimately decided to take 4 tires. And we had a really good stop. And we just lost the race off pit road to come out in P1 by like a nose. So we maintained. I think the first stop we maintained. The second stop we lost 1 spot, and then the third stop we maintained. So overall, like a solid day. All things considered, we were coming down top 5 all race, or at least top 10. So to be at that level, to maintain those spots is overall a great day on pit road. And when the final restart happened and I saw that he took the lead going into turn 1, I was like, the first thing that went through my head was like, just get back to the start line. Once you
See
take
that white flag, man.
take that white flag, whatever can happen behind them, they can all wreck for all I care. But and we won, and it was amazing. It was like I still can't even really believe it, But thinking about jumping off the wall, celebrating, and it was like, oh, this is awesome. This is really, really cool. So, yeah, it was a great day overall.
I did see the video of I kind of watched a little bit of the post race stuff and saw him like smash the watermelon and everything, his signature thing, and you guys standing on the back the pit wall behind him, cheering him on and screaming and yelling. Like what was that like? Is that like, take me through that?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It's like you see him do that on TV, like he has such a big reputation. He's the guy who did that video game move at Martinsville. It's like I have friends who don't know anything about NASCAR, but they're like, "Oh yeah, I know who that guy is. I know what he did." So it was awesome to be in that moment and standing up on the pit wall, the wall separating the track and pit road, and like staring up at the fans. Everybody was cheering. For the most part, I think. And then, Ross, they handed him the watermelon, and he looked back at us and was cheering and hyping us up, and we were just all screaming and yelling. When he threw it down, we all jumped off and went crazy. It was awesome because it's like, it's a team sport, and I really like all the guys on my crew, on our mechanics, our crew chief, everything like that. And it really comes down to like winning as a group. And it's like, man, doing it with those guys was the best part of it, honestly. So yeah. And then we, the burnout was awesome. And then we headed to Victory Lane. I'd never been to Victory Lane before. And so I like didn't really know what went down. But yeah, and then we headed there, and it was like just surreal standing there and being like, oh man, I made it, made it to the promised land.
So I mean, that's awesome. Like, I remember when I jumped off the wall the first time and at Milwaukee last year, and it was just I couldn't believe it. Like, that's the thing is like you said, it's so surreal that like you don't think it's actually happening.
Right.
And it's awesome to see that you got a win and got yourself to victory lane. But so what happens in victory lane? Like, what happens after all the fans leave and that he smashes the watermelon and does the burnout and everything? Like, what happens after that point?
Yeah. So, like, you're right. That's a good question. Like, because I had just seen it from afar, but I really didn't know exactly what happened. So you get there, and they have it all set up. They have like the trophy there. They have all the presentation. They have the backdrop, and then you just look, and there's like 50 photographers in front of you, right? And you're just like, when you walk in, somebody just hands you this big, like bag full of hats, and like I'll show you, right? Like I'm wearing one of them, Sparko Victory Lane. They gave us this, but these are all the hats that you get. You get a team hat. You get a Chevy hat because we're a Chevy truck team. I got like a brand new team hat because they wanted us looking good for the pictures. And then you get a hat from the race sponsor. So it's the Click It, Don't Risk It 200 at Darlington. And then you get a Craftsman Truck Series hat. So they just hand you all these hats, and there's a person from NASCAR there and like kind of directing traffic. So the PR person from NASCAR and the PR person from your team are there, and like you're coordinating, and they're like, all right, everybody get a hat. And then normally the truck and the driver come in last because they have to do their post-race interviews or whatever. So we were just waiting there for like 5 minutes, and we're like, oh man, this is awesome. And Ross came and yeah, cheering again. We were going crazy. And then so yeah, basically what happens is you're all standing behind the truck. He's raising the trophy, and then the PR people are like, all right, put on your Sparko hat. Everybody put on a Sparko hat. And you reach in your bag, you get your Sparko hat, you take a picture, you hold up number one, and you yell, woo! And then hey, put on the Craftsman Truck Series hat. So you take this one off, put the Craftsman Truck. You take like 6 pictures. And then it's kind of like prom or homecoming pictures, right? It's like, all right, I want a picture with these people. So it's like, and then like Ross and the team owner, and then the general manager got a picture, and then it's like Ross and the crew chief, then it's like Ross and the pit crew, and Ross and the mechanic guys, and so it's like we all got a picture with the trophy, and we all got these separate pictures, and it's like, yeah. So that's kind of how it goes. I mean, was it similar for you when you won?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. Only my driver doesn't smash a watermelon on the front stretch. So basically, when we won at Milwaukee, I was with a buddy of ours, Ben Weber. He's awesome guy, but we won and we're walking down the pit lane, and I'm like, so where do we go? Do we go to the truck or do we go to victory lane? And he's like, well, it looks like he's already got the checkered flag. And I was like, all right, let's go to victory lane. Let's go. Yeah. And like, I wanted to get there, and like, I was recording it all, and like, I had all the like you said, we were up there on the stage and had a bag of hats and all the reporters in front of us that were taking pictures and everything. And like, and that was pretty much it. It was like, you put your one hat on, your GMS hat, and then you put your Chevrolet hat on, then your Craftsman hat, and then your I think we had an Allegiant hat. Yeah. And then the for ours it was the Clean Harbor 200.
Right.
And it was like we had these hard hats that we got to wear.
I remember those.
And I still have mine. I will never get rid of that hard hat.
Yeah, I remember you guys wore those on the plane.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of fun when you win. And I mean, it's one of those things that like lives in your memory forever.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like when you were saying, it was like, I was like talking to one of our mechanics. I was like, dude, where's Victory Lane? Like, where is it? I don't know where it is. He was like, yeah, come follow me. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I've never been before. I walked past it a bunch of different, but it's like at a different spot on each track. Sometimes it's like right in the middle. At Darlington, it's like right off of turn 4 at the very end of pit road. So I was like, where is it? So anyways, but yeah, it was awesome. And then, but like the thing I think that people don't notice, right? Like it's like you win the World Series, you win a big game in baseball. It's like you party, and then everybody else cleans up your stuff, right? But like when you win a NASCAR race, it's like, all right, you party, you know, have a good time, and then it's like, oh, but then we got to like tear down and clean up like all of our stuff. We got to like load the hauler, like so. I remember I checked my phone. We got to Victory Lane at like 12:30, and we were probably done with that stuff by like 1. Like we left the track at 2:30 because it took us like an hour and a half to like clean up all of our stuff, like load up the hauler and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, it was like, all right, this kind of sucks, but at least it's better when you win, right? And it's like you're gonna have to clean it up regardless. So it's like, all right, well, at least we won. Like,
Well, I mean, you say that like, oh, this kind of sucks, but I saw all the pictures of all you guys with like holding the trophy and everything in the hauler. Like that part doesn't suck. So it's like you get done with all the stuff you have to do, and then you're like, oh, okay, let's go take pictures with the trophy and like each other and all that stuff. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, and then like we're in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina, so we were like, we had a good time. We had a few drinks, and then we were like, all right, well, it's like 3 a.m. because the race got delayed so much. It's like, what is there to do in Darlington? We're like, all right, let's go to Waffle House. So we went to Waffle House. We had a meal. The guy in charge of all of our pit crew, his named Jeremy Turner, he texted us. He's like, all right, Waffle House on me. I'm like, all right, I'm getting, double hash browns, chunky,
the works, man.
Waffle, exactly. But yeah, it was like, I know some of our one of our friends, Aslan Pugh and Brendan Foley, like their first win was in Nashville. I was like, dude, that's sick. Like you're going out on Broadway and having a great time. It's like, well, we went to Waffle House and had like, I was like, whatever. I mean, it was cool. I can't complain, but it was just funny. It was like, I don't think anybody knew in that restaurant that we had won like an hour ago, but it was cool.
Well, I mean, at least you guys got to go to Waffle House. We had to go right back to the plane and go back home.
Yeah, true. No, that is true. That is true. But yeah, and then like another thing, right? So it's like you win, you're going crazy. You have a few drinks, right? Like name like a couple at least, and then I remember getting to bed at like 4 a.m. and then it was like, all right, we got to wake up at 9 in the morning to go do the Xfinity race. And, at the end of the day, like our Xfinity car wasn't running as good as the truck. Like I knew realistically we didn't have a chance to win, but I was like, I owe it to that team because Joey Gase Motorsports, like those guys, they make the best of what they have. And like Joey is honestly like a really, really good person. And so I always am like wanting to do my best for him. So it's like, you have 5 hours of sleep, you won the race before, and then you're starting in like 37th, right? So it's like, it's really easy to slack off and not care, but it's like, I think that's the difference between like a true professional and somebody who is still maybe not quite there yet, is like, all right, I don't care what race it is. I don't care what happened before. It's like, I owe it to myself. I owe it to my crew. I owe it to the mechanics who work really, really hard, the owners who pay us like a good amount of money to do this. Like I want to give them just as good of a performance as I did, the truck race the night before. So that's kind of how I thought about it, but it was like, it did, was not the best rolling up out of bed at 9 in the morning. Like, oh man, I got 5 hours of sleep, if that. So, but yeah, I mean, our Xfinity race went really well, considering like we had some adjustment stops and whatever, but we had a good finish. But what about you? So talk about your race, like the truck race and kind of the Xfinity race.
So we ran around your guys in the truck race. We started 8th, I think it was, and quickly got up into the top 5. And I think we were there I think we finished 5th in stage 1. And the truck was handling really well, and we didn't have to make any adjustments all night. It was all just little minor tire pressure adjustments. So we were able to just bang out some good stops. And the first pit stop, we came down, and I think we gained 1 spot. And then in the second stage, I think he finished in the top 5 again. I don't remember exactly where. I think it was 4th or 5th or something. And we came down and we gained 2 more spots on pit road. And so like we were doing really good, killing it on pit road. Everybody was super happy, super pumped. They thought it was going to be like a really nice night. And then the big wreck happened.
Yep.
And I think it was the 5 truck was underneath the 11, got loose, racing deal on a restart, and he wrecked up into the 11, and we were right behind them, and we just plowed right into the back of them.
Yep.
And it was tough because we were all hyped about everything that was going on and like happy to be doing really well, and then it all just went away that fast. And and I mean, he even thought he was done. He came on the radio and he's like, "I'm sorry guys, we had a great truck, pit crew, you guys did fantastic, this and that." And like the crew chief and the spotter are telling him like, "Don't put the window net down, drive it back to pit road." And like he drove it back, and oh my god, we cut the left front fender off. We patched a hole in the door. We fixed the rear bumper, and they were talking about making sure everything was clear of the tire so it didn't rub and cut a tire or anything. And the right rear was being hit by the chassis, so like, or the body. So he went back out because they wanted to make sure we didn't lose too many laps, and then came right back down. And I think our crew chief said we had like 45 seconds. So I had to go out there, take the right rear off as fast as I could, let them take this giant hammer and beat the crap out of the right rear to get it to clear the tire. And then I put the tire back on and sent him back out. And we made the DVP, like we didn't fail DVP, which I was very surprised about.
Yeah.
And we ended up only finishing 2 laps down, but we still went, I think it was like 22nd, 23rd that we finished. But we definitely should have deserved a top 5, if not the win. Because I think, I mean, all things considered, I think we had a little bit better of a truck than you guys. But I mean, like, I'm not taking anything away from you guys. Like, you guys definitely deserved the win. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, all you Formula One fans that are always commenting, every time I see a race and somebody barely bumps somebody and they're like, "Oh, we have terminal damage. We can't run anymore." Yeah. Imagine taking a big hammer to a truck and a ball and a baseball bat and just beating the crap out of it and cutting it, and then be like, "All right, go out there and run." I think that's like awesome. It's just like it's just like, all right, we know it's not a good situation, but we're going to make the best out of it, because in NASCAR, it's like every point counts, you don't know if you're going to be 2 points away from making the playoffs or whatever. And like that time you could have called it, but you stayed out and you finished 2 laps down, but you finished 5 spots ahead of what you would have. Like every spot counts. And I think that was,
yeah,
it's
but
like you had a chance at a win at a top 5, and then it's like all of a sudden it's not that anymore. It's a bad feeling. It really is. So
yeah, but I mean, it sucked and everybody was disappointed, but everybody was still happy because we showed, like, everybody knew that we were there, kind of thing.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
but in the Xfinity race, it was kind of the same situation as you, where it was like you go from a high level car or a high level truck to a mid tier Xfinity car. So it's like you got to still have the same mentality of like, I got to give it my all no matter what. And I mean, we got Matt DiBenedetto in the car the rest of the year, which is awesome. I love that. He's such a nice guy, and I'm happy that he's got this opportunity. So we, again, try to just give it our all for all the pit stops that we can. And
for sure.
I think qualifying and practice got rained out for Xfinity. So we started 31st based off of points. And he was complaining in the beginning about being out of the track. Like he couldn't really feel what the track was doing to the car. And he said he couldn't feel the splitter hitting the ground. So on the first adjustment, we did packer adjustments, which are the shims inside the shock. We had to pull a packer on each side.
Yeah.
And it really slowed our stops down. I think we got up to like 22nd. And then when we left pit road, we were like 28th or 29th.
Yeah. We actually did the exact opposite. We put a packer in both sides because we were on the splitter.
Yeah.
And I do need to get some video, and I want to show this, but essentially in the front suspension, packers are these shims, essentially like volume spacers. And the more of these packers you put in, the less you limit the more you limit the travel of the front suspension. So you're allowing the front suspension to move less. And if you're on the splitter, you're scrubbing speed every time because that front of the car is scraping against the track. So we had the exact opposite of you, where we had to put a packer in, essentially limiting the volume or the amount that the front suspension could move by an eighth of an inch or whatever it is. It's not much, but we did that on both sides our first stop, and I guess you guys were a little bit too high.
Yeah, they had us pull a packer in both sides on the first stop, and I think we did a round of track bar also.
Yeah.
And then on the second stop, it didn't make it any better, so we pulled more packers on the front
Yeah.
and did more adjustments in the track bar. And then after that, he said it was like a switch flipped and the car was super tight and he couldn't drive in traffic and he just had no speed and we just could not get that back. And we ended up finishing like, I think it was 25th,
Yeah,
something
we
like that.
finished 26, so we were right behind you guys. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard for these crew chiefs when practice and qualifying get rained out. It's like you have you're kind of guessing. You know, you can take what you did the previous years and use that as a template, but it's like the track changes each year, each day, really, depending on the weather, how much rubber there is, like all that stuff. So, it's like when that gets rained out, you're kind of behind the eight ball because it's like, all right, your crew chief has to guess like what he thinks is going to be the best setup. But everybody's in that same boat. So there was definitely a lot. I talked to one of my other buddies, and he was saying he did a packer adjustment his first stop too. So it sounded like there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
To kind of get things dialed in.
So one of the things that we talked about last week on the podcast was about how Darlington, you always do a lot of pit stops and how the pit crew always comes into play. So how many pit stops did you do in the truck race and how many did you do in the Xfinity race?
So honestly, less than I thought we would. We did 3 stops in the truck race and 3 stops in the Xfinity race. Hold on.
Oh, wow.
I think no, we did 4 stops. Yeah, 4 stops in the Xfinity race. But we had one set of stickers laying in both in the truck race and the Xfinity race. So what that means is NASCAR gives you a tire allocation, how many sets of tires. In the truck race, it was 4.
I think it was 4
wall.
sets.
Yeah, and in the Xfinity, it was 5 sets behind the wall. So we had the opportunity. We could have done one more set of pit stops at least in both the truck and the Xfinity race, and just the way it played out, we didn't. But was that similar to you, Steven? I know the truck race with the damage, it kind of changed things, but
I think we ended up doing 4 stops in the truck race just because of the damage.
uh-huh.
And then we ended up doing 4 stops in the Xfinity race as well. But for everyone that doesn't really know, like Darlington compared to, most of the other tracks, the general allotment for the truck series is like 3 sets of tires. You get one at the end of stage 2, you get one at the end of stage 3, or one at the end of stage 1, one at the end of stage 2, and then at the midway point of stage 3, you'll come down and take another set, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you're going to pit. And then for the Xfinity race, it's usually like 4 sets of tires where you get one at stage 2, or one at stage 1, one at stage 2, and then in the middle of stage 3, and you might have a set afterwards if in case there's a late race caution. So it's like for us to do 4 stops in the truck race and 4 stops in the Xfinity race, that's a little bit more than what every other track was. And I think the allotment for the Cup race was like, I think they had 11 or 14 sets of tires, one of those two.
Yeah, it was 11 stickers, and then they had one set from qualifying that they could put on as well. So a scuff set that only had like 1 or 2 laps on it. But yeah, I mean, you're doing a ton of tires, and so this is one thing we've wanted to do as well, is like incorporate more video and visuals into our podcast. So Steven actually has some pit stops from the race from last year, from the last year's truck race when we were both on Raja Karu's truck, the 24 truck, for GMS Racing. And so we're just gonna kind of walk you through. We're gonna let it play first, and then we'll walk you through kind of how a pit stop works. I'll let Steven do most of the talking because this is his video, and he's more of the rear changer than I am. But yeah, we'll let this play for you guys.
Oh, well, that was a terrible stop. That's a good one to show. Okay.
Amazing. Yeah, great selection there. So, but we'll talk about a few things kind of going in. So, Steven, just talk a little bit about what you're looking at when you're looking down pit road and you see a truck coming in. Like, what's kind of going through your mind?
So the main thing, and you're probably the same way, is you want to know what the truck looks like. So you always check out the truck before the race, or the pictures that they post online and stuff, so you can see what the truck looks like, so you know what truck you're looking for.
Yes.
And so when the truck comes down, you're not allowed to jump until the truck or car is at least one pit stall away. And so
Yes.
that's this line right here, the next pit stall in front of us.
Yep.
And so we had to come around them. So basically what I'm looking for is I'm looking right here at the right rear corner or the left rear corner of the truck. So that's my marker to aim for, so I can tell how fast the truck's going, so I know when I can take off and go around it.
Yep.
So he was a little further out there, and I wasn't expecting him to be so far out, but I was able to get close enough to touch the back of the truck and then come around, and Johnny's over there dropping his tire off for the jack man.
So we had a big this must have not been a good stop at all because our jackman is not there. So it sounds like our jackman went behind the truck, which is normally not ideal. But when we had the reason I know we had an adjustment is because I'm taking my tire out. So we'll explain this more as we go on and show some more stops. But the choreography, or what we call it, basically the script of how the pit stop works, changes depending on whether you'll have certain adjustments or not. But yeah, two things that kind of go off what Steven said. So this was a throwback weekend, and we had a different paint scheme than what we normally do. So you get used to looking for one kind of paint scheme on your truck, and then when that changes, it can be a little difficult sometimes to get used to it. But another thing is when you're looking at that jump line, especially from Steven's perspective, and there's a crew already there or jumping out right in front of you, it's really hard to tell when he hits that jump line. So sometimes you have to do a guessing game and say, I think he's there, and you take a jump.
Yeah, that's really it. Like with this crew being here in front of us, like I can't see when he's at that line. So I'm kind of just judging it a little bit off of where he is in relation to this truck, but I'm kind of just watching the truck, and basically I've got a little bit of time, so whenever he gets about halfway through that box is when I'll step off the wall, because I got to wait for the truck to come by anyway. So
Yep.
I kind of get to the right rear or the left rear, come around, and then when I drop, I drop and I'm looking for the first lug nut, which is going to be either here or here.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And that's what I'm looking for, because it's the closest one to the back of the truck. So it's going to be the easiest one for me to sit down and hit,
So
because I can plainly see it.
you're a little bit different than me. I normally go for the 3 o'clock lug nut, anywhere from like 3 to 6. And the reason I do that is when they hang the tire, you'll see here in a little bit, the carrier is going to have his hands kind of covering anywhere from like the left side of the tire, basically from 12 to, if you drew a line right down the clock, 12 to 6, anything over to that left hand side is going to be covered. So when I puts the tire on and I tighten the lug nuts, I always go in and hit the 3 o'clock lug nut first, because it's the one that's easiest to hit, because his arms are kind of blocking the other one. So I prefer to just have it consistent and start my off pattern on the same way that I finish my on pattern. But it's different for everybody, I know.
And so, yeah, I mean, it is different for everybody, but I generally try to start at that, this one of these 2 lug nuts, just because I can plainly see them.
Yep.
But when I go to pull the tire, you always want to try to pull with even distribution across the tire.
Yep.
Because that's what's going to pull the tire straight off the hub.
So this is one thing when people say don't really know if pit crew members are athletes or how athletic they are. Steven's pulling a 75-pound tire right now with 3 fingers, and I guess 4 fingers if you're counting your thumb. But you're holding your gun in one hand and you're grabbing the tire in your left hand with your middle finger, and then you're grabbing the other side of the rim with your 2 fingers, your middle finger and your index finger and your thumb. But that's all that you have to pull a 75-pound tire.
So, yeah, right there's a good picture. I'm using just the index finger and trying to pin the gun up against the rim to help pull with the left side, and then I've got the 2 fingers and the thumb on the right side. So when I pulled it out, I kind of hit my knee and pinned it up against the truck in my knee. So that kind of messed me up a little bit. And then the carrier did a very good job of putting that tire on and getting it studded really well.
Yep.
So that way I could just come right in and hit that first lug nut as fast as possible, because he's not even out of the tire yet before I'm hitting the first one.
So pause it right there. Keep it paused. So one thing is, you notice that Steven has these pink lines on his gun on his socket there. And the reason he does that is you can see the lug nut, when it's tight, the socket will stop spinning. And maybe you're not able to see it in real motion because when you're going so fast, you just rely on feel. But a lot of times I'll go back and watch the video and watch it in slow motion on my GoPro and be like, all right, I saw the socket stop here, here, here. I know all 5 are tight.
Yeah.
But it's just an extra kind of tool that us tire changers use to make sure that we are seeing the socket stop, and that means that the lug nut is all the way tightened.
Yeah, I don't think I can play it in slow-mo on here,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that's definitely like a great point. So after I hit the 5 lug nuts, I think the carrier is doing something with the adjustment wrench. So as I get up, my biggest fear is this snake right here is navigating around the hose and trying not to step on it. And then I've got the fueler. And hopefully, if the fueler's, getting a good plug initially, he'll be done with the first can and already going back to the wall to get the second can.
Yep.
So he won't be in my way. So I can just slide around.
But another thing is right here, right? So on the far right-hand side, you see there is a puddle of gas that's on the ground right there, right? So you have to navigate the hose, try not to slip on that. But depending on how good his plug was, there can be a whole bunch of fuel on the ground. And you can also slip on that very, very easily. So that's another thing that rear changers have to navigate.
And one of the things that, so I'm navigating the hose. I'm making sure the fueler's not there. I'm making sure there's no fuel on the ground. And I got to switch my button.
Yep.
From the off to the on. Or from the on to the off. So that way I can hit these lug nuts off with no problem.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff going on whenever people talk about like good pit stops, bad pit stops. That was slow. This is terrible, whatever. So there's all these things happening, and we still got to do it as fast as possible and like, what, 15 seconds or less.
Yeah, ideally, right? So yeah, let's keep it playing, and then I want to stop it right when the carrier puts his on pattern when he indexes the tire here. Let's talk about what went wrong.
So he kind of gets it on there, and he hit just about everything to get it on.
Uh-huh. And so we glue the lug nuts to the rim. We use an adhesive, and that's why the lug nuts that we're going to tighten are already on there, and it saves a bunch of time. But what Steven was saying, it wasn't the cleanest hang. It was kind of knocking around, and because of that, 2 lug nuts came off.
Yeah,
And
it
so
looked like
what's
it pulled the glue off the tire itself.
So what's kind of your thought process when you see that happening?
So basically, it's one of those things where you just have to try to find it at whatever lug nut you can, whether it's a new lug nut, old lug nut, it doesn't matter. Whatever lug nuts you can to get the tire, they get them back on the tire as fast as possible.
Right. So yeah, and us, a lot of our changers will have a mount on our helmet that has a lug nut connected to a magnet, and so there's one on your helmet that you can reach. But if two, so kind of depending too, Stephen, depending on whether it's the last stop of the race or not, NASCAR checks and make sure all 5 lug nuts are tight. And if there's one lug nut that's not tight per each lug nut, it's a $5,000 fine, right? So that's like a big penalty. You have a lot of money riding on you making sure you get 5 tight. Let alone the wheel being like 3, maybe not would have been tight. Definitely on a long run, I'm going to say probably not. But just think about that, right? So it's like you have a $5,000 fine if you don't get a lug nut tight. If you don't get 2 tight, that's double. So
Well, I think if you have 3 or less, it's a suspension
yeah.
for
So
the tire changer.
yeah. So I don't know what happened to the rest of that video. I think I kind of flagged Roger down a little bit here, but
Well, we ended up just going around and coming back down and getting those 2 lug nuts tight.
yeah.
But I've got one that's a little bit cleaner
Uh-huh.
and a little bit better. So
So I'm not going to talk as much in this one. We're just going to let it play and kind of go from there.
yep. So that one was a lot better. It was, we didn't have these guys jumping in front of us because we were in front of them. So we were able to get everybody was able to get a clean read on the truck.
Yes.
And as you can see, I was a lot closer to the back of the truck than I was the first time.
Yep.
And then we've got everybody on this side of the truck. And it was a nice, clean one extra. Nice, clean hang. Good on. A little bit of fuel on the ground to navigate.
Yep.
Clean off. Good hang. Clean on. And that's it. That's like
Yep.
that's how it goes. I mean, it can
No,
be as easy as that, or it can be as disastrous as the last pit stop.
exactly. Well, it's going to be showed both. So let's kind of transition here because I know you have film on this as well. So we're going to North Wilkesboro this upcoming weekend, and North Wilkesboro is going to be different this year. Last year they hadn't raced on the track since the mid '90s, and it was the original pavement, at least 20 years old, and it was like cracked. It had a bunch of wear, and tires were at a priority. Like I remember we did at least 3 stops at North Wilkesboro. But going into this year, they repaved it and it looks really, really smooth. I think like lap times are like 2.5, 3 seconds faster on this new surface than they were on the old surface. So I really have no clue. I need to talk to my crew chief. I'll see him tomorrow. But I don't know how tire wear is going to be. I don't know if we're going to only do one
I
or
don't
two
think tire
stops.
wear is going to be existent.
Yeah. So I really think it's going to take the tire wear factor completely out of the game. I think it's possible some teams might do one 4-tire stop the entire race. Maybe right sides, maybe 4 tires, or maybe two stops. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams doing more than 3 stops, and the majority of the teams maybe trying to stretch it to 2, just 2 4-tire stops. So I don't know.
I mean,
What
that
about
would be fantastic for me. Come in, do 2 stops.
right? Right. Yes. So it's kind of a big guessing game, but kind of talking about North Wilkesboro, it's a short track and it's an old track. And 2 things for me to keep in mind on North Wilkesboro. One is that the pit road is slanted outward. Is that
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
if you set a tire, there's a real risk that it could roll back into pit road and you get a penalty for an uncontrolled tire. That's a real possibility at North Wilkesboro.
Yeah. You gotta be careful when you set your right sides to make sure they don't roll out onto the pit area.
Yep. And the second thing that I keep in mind at North Wilkesboro is because it's such a short track, pit road is curved.
Mhm.
So the first like 15 stalls are all going around the in the middle of turn 3 and turn 4 on the track. And if you're there, which we were last year for Raja's truck, or at least I was, I think you were there with me
I was
too.
with you. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was with you. You and me in it together.
right. Uh, the reason I say that is we got switched halfway through the season, but we were in the middle of one of the corners, and the visibility is like really bad. Like you can't see the
Mhm.
truck until it's like 3 or 4 stalls in front of you.
Yeah, they basically enter the pit road on the backstretch, and you can't see anything because of all the pit stalls and all the people and the trucks and everything. Like, you can't see anything for when they come into pit road. You're just listening to your spotter saying, "All right, he's on pit road," and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna see him eventually."
Yep. So when we talk about Darlington, right, like it's a pretty straight pit road. There's a few things that we talked about last week, but generally I would rate it as a decent pit road. Like it's nothing that I really have to worry about. These short tracks like North Wilkesboro, Martinsville, even Phoenix has a wraparound pit road. Like if you're in the corner, it can be really, really, really challenging
Mhm.
to see the truck, for the driver to come in. It just makes things really difficult. So this week, I would say is pit road is a much more the actual surface of pit road itself is much more challenging than last week at Darlington.
Yeah, so I have that video pulled up, from, I think this is our first pit stop,
Yep,
and if I can remember correctly, you had to pull damage on both front tires.
I did. Yeah, it was a little bit of a slow stop if I remember. Um, we had couple faster stops later in the race for sure, but as you can see here, right, like luckily we have an opening in, which means there's nobody in the stall directly in front of us, but you can still see, like, you can't see the truck until it's, I don't know, 20 yards in front of you.
3 pit stalls
Right,
away, like,
exactly.
you might be able to see it over here if this official wasn't standing on the wall, but, I mean, and the pit wall itself, it's such a small pit wall, it's basically like a curb on the side of
Yeah.
the road, like, to get up onto the sidewalk, that's all it is. So, I'm gonna go ahead and let this one play, and I heard that he's on pit road now, so I'm like, "Okay, where's he at?" Okay, there he is.
Yep.
So again, 1 pit stall away is when we can jump off the wall. So he's in that 1 pit stall away, so I can jump off here. And they're not very big boxes. So you gotta get around the truck as quick as you can. So
Oh, and you had to do take a spring rubber out.
I had to put a rubber in.
Okay. So it ended up kind of evening out a little bit, I guess. I had to pull some damage on that left front there. So it was slow because Steven was slow on the right side, having to do that major adjustment, putting that spring rubber in. That cost 3 seconds, let's just say. And then on the left front, I had to pull damage, and that's another 3 seconds. So we had a slow right side, and then that compounded on a slow left side. Nothing we can do about it. That's just the kind of what we had been given. But you try and do the best with it you can, right? Like you're going to lose time compared to a normal stop, but you're like, all right, I'm going to try and do the best with this as I can.
Johnny, all in the moment.
That's right.
But yeah, so this was a good stop to show people basically like what you know spring rubbers are, what they do. So when I pull that out, back it up a little bit. So we got one spring rubber here, we got one spring rubber here. And basically those rubbers are zip tied to the spring. And what they're going to do is make it to where the spring doesn't compress as much. So basically, I needed to take this spring rubber or that one of the two, and put it inside the spring. So since it's zip tied in there, all I had to do was just take it and put it in there, inside of it. So I reach in, put my hand on the brake rotor like an idiot, and I put it inside the spring.
Yeah.
And then once it's in there, I can get out. Carrier can put the tire on, and we can carry on with the pit stop.
Yeah. So you notice like I was ahead there, right on the right side because it slowed down Steven having to do that. But on the left side, Steven is going to finish several seconds ahead of me because I'm pulling damage here on the front.
Oh yeah, you are over there. I didn't see you over there the first time, so.
But yeah, so one thing kind of to mention is like one thing that separates these good teams from the bad teams is if you have to make an adjustment, having that spring rubber already zip tied there is such a huge time saver. You'll get some of these teams who are like, "Oh yeah, put a spring rubber in. Here's one on the pit box. We're going to hand it to you." And then you're like, "All right, running out, setting it down, putting it up." And the teams you never want to make an adjustment like that. But because North Wilkesboro was a track that nobody had raced at in 20 years, it's like there's not a template to really have for the crew chief. So an adjustment like that, it happened, but it was right there, and it saved having it zip tied there saved as much time as it could be.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that helps too is like they talk about like shaving the a little bit of the outside of the spring rubber, the part that sits inside the center, so that way it can just roll right in there real easy. Because if they don't do that, then it's all curved up on the outside, and you're like beating the crap out of it to try and get it in, and it's just wasting time basically.
So
But
one thing I want to keep in mind. So let's go back to where the truck is coming into the pit stall, all the way back. So when Steven's talking about he's hearing the spotter, right? So what that means is we have radio in our ear, and so we hear the driver, we hear the crew chief, and we hear the spotter. And so the spotter is counting us in. Normally, what they'll say is he's on pit road now, and he's reading to the driver what RPM and gear ratio he needs to be at, because the trucks and none of the NASCARs have speedometers; they have tachometers. So you judge your pit road speed based off of RPMs or certain gear in that RPM range. So he's reading that off on pit road now. Second gear, 3,500, 3 flashing red is what that sounds like. Then we're coming down pit road. Most of the time we can see him, but generally pit road lingo is the spotter will go 10 away. That means the driver is 10 stalls away. And then the crew chief will take it over and he'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, wheel straight, foot on the brake.
3, 2, 1.
Generally what he says. And so we couldn't see Raja until he was right on top of us. So we were really relying on the spotter to tell us he's on pit road, he's 10 away. Okay, I can't see him until he's 5 away, and he counts us in. So in this situation, having a spotter and having it in your ear is really, really helpful.
Now, one of the things that you can keep in mind is right here, the picture. The 42 truck is already on pit road, and he gets into his pit stall, and they switch to another team that's doing another set. But they're about done their pit stop, and we haven't even started yet.
Yep.
And they're about to finish the left sides, and we're still pulling into the pit stall. Like, that's like, you try to see like who your truck is racing around, so you know, like, okay, I got to keep an eye out for, like, the 5 truck because
Right.
we were racing around him, or the 2 truck. Like, if I see those guys, I know my truck is like right around there. But some of the, like, you don't know exactly unless you like memorize the pit road. You don't know exactly where those guys are pitted at. So a lot of the trucks might be gone by the time they get to you if you're further down pit road. Or what stall were we? We were 29 because this is pit stall 30. So we were pit stall 29. So we're kind of smack in the middle where, like, some of the trucks might be gone. A lot of the trucks might still be there. Like,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, one thing is, that race, I know for sure. I was like, the 5 is our truck. We're trying to beat the 5 truck every time because they were like 2 stalls in front of us, or maybe 1 stall in front of us, and they were like always right next to us on the racetrack. They were all like 1 spot ahead of us or 2 spots behind us or whatever. But it was always like, all right, the 5 is our target. Like, if we're behind them on the track, we're gonna try and beat them off pit road. If we're a spot or 2 ahead of them on the track, we're gonna try and maintain and keep them behind us. And so, like, when you have those trucks that are racing right next to you on the track and then they're 1 pit stall away, it's like, all right, it's game on. Like, these are the guys that we have. Everybody's going to know if we lose a spot to them because they're right there. Everybody's going to know if we gain a spot, So yeah, those are that's kind of like what I think about. It's stressful because it's like, all right, they're right there, but at the same time, it's also like, all right, you have your eye on the target. You know exactly where they are, what they're doing. So
yeah.
yeah, man.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what North Wilkesboro looked like last year. Phenomenal facility. I love it. I can't wait to go back this weekend.
Yeah,
I'm excited to go there and bang out some fast stops. We might not even have to do pit stops. I mean, who knows? We don't know what
yeah,
tire wear is going to be like. So
yeah. Pit road's gonna be the same because the only thing they resurfaced last year was pit road, so it's gonna be the same this year. But the track surface is gonna be brand new, and a lot of questions are gonna be unanswered, and we'll find out. We might very well have to make some adjustments based on last year. The same track we raced on last year, but the pavement is completely different. So, crew chiefs are
yeah,
going to have to try and adapt to that. So it wouldn't surprise me if we do a 4-tire stop stage 1, just so the crew chiefs can check tire wear, number 1. And number 2, they might have to do several adjustments or a adjustment to kind of counteract the new pavement. So
yep, yeah, exactly. I mean, like he said, you don't know what we're gonna get when we go there. I mean, they did a tire test there earlier in the season, so some of the teams might have a general idea of what it might be, but you never know until you're there in the
that's
race doing the situation.
exactly. Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. I'm excited for it. It should be awesome. North Wilkesboro is like an awesome facility. I'm really happy they went back to it, and yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I can't wait to get there and see what we got because you got Ross in the truck again, right?
Yeah, so hopefully we can get
Yeah.
another back to back would be awesome. We'll see. But Lane Riggs is a short track guy, so you guys are going to run good too. I know for sure. So
I hope so. We need a good run. We've been having some issues here lately and not getting the finishes that we've deserved. So
yep,
hopefully we can turn it around.
yep, no doubt, man. Well, we've ran pretty late here, but I think it's been good showing you the videos and talking about kind of the behind the scenes stuff. So we'll look for you next week when we're at our home track in Charlotte, Truck and Xfinity and ARCA as well, actually, I think for both of us. So it'll be a busy weekend with 3 races. And yeah, we'll get back to you next week with a recap of North Wilkesboro and a preview of Charlotte.
Yep. Till then, you guys be good. We will catch you next time.
That's right. We'll see ya.